Sup nerds! So today we are going to be talking about another handheld, and if you guys have been watching a few of my other videos, you guys know that there is a handheld that I have showed before that I haven't made a dedicated video for it yet, and that is of course our ROG Ally Z1E. Let me wipe down some of my fingerprints. But yeah, our ROG Ally Z1E. Out of the three main handheld PCs that kinda started this whole boom, there was Steam Deck, of course, and then there was ROG Ally, and then later came the Legion Go. Those were the three main ones for a while. Starting now in 2025, a lot more have been coming out to the point where these are getting outdated now. The Z2 chip is coming out very soon, so there will be like a whole new level above these. But since this is still my main handheld, I did want to take a look at it to show you guys to see if this is still worth it. But yeah, if you are going to pick one up, I do recommend getting a sleeve for it. The protective film of course goes without saying. Any handheld, you should have a protective film on it, but a protective sleeve I definitely think is a good idea, especially because the regular Z1 and the Z1 Extreme, they do have a white body, and this white body, it does have like a little grainy texture to it. It's not completely smooth, and the grainy plastic, once it gets dirty, it does get really difficult to clean, especially in the back part here where the hand goes. It can get pretty dirty. The dirt gets in between those grainy texture. Even if you scrub it, it doesn't come out very easily. So having a sleeve on will probably keep your handheld in a better condition for a longer period of time. With this silicone case, the texture is a lot smoother, so I can clean it much more easily, and it also feels really nice to hold on the hand like this. Not only that, but a thumb cap could be nice as well, but this goes for any analog stick. If you do use it for a long period of time and your thumb sweats quite a bit, the rubber pad on the analog can wear out with time, so having a thumb cap does prevent that. And if it does wear out the thumb cap, you can just take it out and switch without any issues. But one thing I will mention though, of course, because this is a handheld PC and not just a regular handheld or an emulation handheld, it is a lot more sophisticated, and so you should probably get a protective case for it as well. And for a long time, I did have their official carrying case, which is waterproof, and that is nice and all, but it is a soft case. And so I'm not sure if it would protect that well against impacts, but this is what I had for a long time. But the moment I put the thumb caps on it, I did realize that the closing the case was pressing down on the analog stick more, because I mean the thumb cap does add a little bit of height to the stick, and so every time I would take out the ROG Ally out of the case, the sticks would start making a little noise, like a little popping noise, and I realized it's because the case was pressing down on the analog every time I put it in there. So I did eventually change the carrying case for a larger hard case one, and this one, as you can see, it does have a lot more space and it doesn't press down on the analog. It is not as forcibly as the other one. So once I changed, analog stopped making that popping noise. So just a heads up, if you are thinking of putting a thumb cap on it, then maybe get a carrying case that does allow for more space above here. But speaking of the analog, it is a lot lighter, let's say. I'm not sure what the right term is, but it is a lot lighter than, let's say, an Xbox controller. It feels like there's less resistance when moving it, which is not necessarily a good thing. It feels maybe a little more fragile. It feels like your movement doesn't carry a weight to it. I do prefer Xbox analogs. I have had an Xbox 360 for quite a long time, so that's what I'm used to, and so this lighter analog, it did take a little getting used to. I think now mostly I did kind of get used to it. I do have this since November 2023. That's when my friend helped me get this. And of course, I don't play exclusively on this. I do have a gaming PC, which is where I record game footages and stuff. So I do spend more time on my desktop still, but I do play this in bed or while my desktop is rendering videos. It's something that you immediately feel if you have used other gamepads. But at least the size of the analog is decent. I do know that some of the other handhelds do have smaller analogs, and I'm not a huge fan of like the really small ones. So this one size wise does feel pretty good. It's just the lightness of the movement. And of course there is also LED lights around the analog, which is great and all, but if you played it for a long time and you tend to flick your analog, then the analog plastic does wear off onto the LED light plastic here. And so after a while you do see a black streak over here and you see your analog starting to flake, which of course is never great for a collector or a gamer to see on their handheld. So I don't know if you can see it, but I do have these little silicone rubber band things on the analog. It does protect it against grinding plastic to plastic. So yeah, that's also something you should probably look into if you're thinking in getting a ROG Ally. I'm not sure that other handhelds have that issue, at least I never felt it. It could be that it is just more apparent here because the LED light plastic here is transparent, so the black plastic on it does make it look very apparent. It could be that. At least I don't remember my Xbox controllers having any issues like that. I do remember that the analog stick itself did have some scuff marks after a while, so that could be a similar problem. It's just that we didn't see the vestiges on the plastic, but you know, it is just something to keep in mind. The D-pad here does feel similar to those of the Xbox 360 D-pads, kind of. Not exactly the same, but does feel somewhat similar in form factor. It's not terrible, it's decent, but it could be slightly better. The face buttons here are exactly like the Xbox ones, A, B, X, Y. Feels like them, it presses like them, and I don't mind it. Like I said, I did use a Xbox 360 controller for a really long time. It is what I'm used to, so having these, definitely pretty good. And as you can see, there are 2 buttons on one side of the screen and 2 buttons on the other side. But in game, the upper buttons are usually select and start here. But the bottom ones, this is the overlay button for you to change quick settings of the ASUS. This is to open the ROG Ally program. I'll show you later when I actually turn on the device. And then up front here, there are 2 speakers, which they aren't really the loudest, but also not too quiet either. Usually keep the sound very low and I still hear it without any issues. No gripes about that. In the back here, as you can see, there is some vent holes, and I think this one is for intake. Maybe it's this one. There are 2 back pedal buttons, one on each side. In games, I have never used these, to be honest, but on Windows itself, I have used this because to bring up the digital keyboard, you do have to press that button up on the D-pad. That is the shortcut to bring up digital keyboard. But also Alt-Tab is also that back paddle button and one of the D-pad buttons. I don't use Alt-Tab that often, but the keyboard I definitely bring up all the time. There are just 2 holes here. One might be a microphone, or maybe both are microphones, I'm not too sure. And then up here, as you can see, there are LNR bumpers and LNR triggers. Pretty standard form factor nowadays to have stacked shoulder buttons like this, and they don't feel too bad. The shoulder buttons are just shallow clicks, which honestly I don't mind too much, but definitely different from like an Xbox 360 controller. The triggers are pretty deep, to be honest, but I haven't had any issues with them, to be honest. They are wide and curved buttons, and that has made it pretty comfortable to press, though I find myself not pressing with the tip of my fingers like I used to with Xbox controller, but rather have my whole finger on there and just press the bumper and then go down to shoot. And the transition here from one button to other is very smooth because the separation between them is not that big. On PlayStation 3 controllers, I often had 2 of my fingers on there to press the bumper and the trigger, but with the ROG Ally, I do find myself only playing with 1 finger on there, using that 1 finger for both, because the travel distance is very small, very slim, so you know, it's comfortable enough to play like that, and I do like it. Still looking above here, there are the vents here, which are pretty decent size. Just a personal gripe is that when I play on front of my computer, I often set it down to mess with my keyboard on the computer up here, and the vents being pointed up does throw hot air onto my hands while I'm typing. But you know, that is a very specific case, so like I said, it's a very personal gripe. Most handhelds do have vents up here. That is not a negative point, it's just something that I personally face. There is a power button here, which does also have the fingerprint reader on it, so you can set that up so that you can just press and hold and then it will log in automatically for you. These 2 are the power LED lights. One indicates being on and the other indicates charging. There is volume buttons, minus and plus, and then there is a USB-C port here for charging and for peripherals if needed, but just that one single USB-C port because there are no ports down here. And this is for eGPUs, I believe, but I just have never used it. And of course, there is a headphone jack here and the famed micro SD port that was faulty with a lot of the first few batches of ROG Ally, and mine is definitely one of the ones that are faulty. We did end up getting this open box to get it cheaper, and because it was one of the very first batches of ROG Allies to be out, it definitely does have an issue with the micro SD. Possibly the reason why the person who had this returned it and why it became a open box, but because my friend helped me get this in the States and I'm living in Brazil, it does make it tougher to send it in to ASUS for them to fix it. I did read a lot of stories of people who did send it back and then got it back with other issues and whatnot. Some of them didn't even fix it. So reading all that back then, I guess nowadays people are having much less issues with all that. But me back then, reading about it, thinking about sending a handheld from Brazil to the States to maybe get that fixed seemed like it wasn't worth the hassle. So I just kept it as is, and so I just don't use the micro SD. That said, without the micro SD, the internal storage for this does only have 512 gigabytes of SSD. Now, you can open it up and change it if you want to, but those smaller SSDs here in Brazil is pretty expensive, so I just left it as the 512. And I haven't had much issues with that. I just have to keep a smaller selection of games on this, delete the ones I beat before I install new ones, and so on. And you know, I don't mind it. It is a handheld. This isn't my main gaming platform, so just having a few games on here at a time, I definitely don't mind it. But I'm skipping ahead, I guess. The form factor here for a handheld PC, it is pretty light and not too big, like compared to something like Legion Go. A lot of people are now calling this screen small for a handheld PC. I don't think it's small, but of course I did come from handhelds like the Dingu A320, which as you can see, doesn't even fill out the screen. RS97, which even that doesn't really fill out the whole screen. But yeah, so coming from little handhelds like this, for me this does feel like a big screen, but I've seen a lot of people online selling or returning these to get something bigger like the Legion Go to have that bigger screen. Other than that, the form factor is pretty good. Even though it looks mostly flat over here, the little curves on the side does feel pretty comfortable to hold. My middle finger does end up on the paddle button naturally, and the index finger on the trigger button. It is very comfortable to hold it like this. Haven't had any hand cramps playing this handheld this way, and it just overall feels pretty great. And like I said, it is pretty light for a handheld PC. It is lighter than the Steam Deck even, so it's not a huge issue playing like this for a few hours. Now that is all I had to say about the externals, I think. Now about the internals, I will put the specs up here like I usually do. Like I already mentioned, the internal storage can be swapped. Some people even swap the RAM apparently. I'm not too comfortable doing that, I'm not tech savvy like that. And I've seen some people even switch out the battery for a bigger battery and then switching out the backplate to accommodate all that. I think it's super cool that people can do that, but for me it's not really an option. And the biggest drawback from this handheld is of course the battery. To some people might be the micro SD thing, but like I said, most of the ones you can get nowadays don't have that issue anymore. It's just the ones from the first few batches really that had that issue, and even those, a lot of people did hand it in to get it fixed. So most likely if you do buy them now, you won't have that issue with that. The only persisting issue with this handheld will be the short battery life, and really if you play something heavy, it goes by really quickly. Like some of them won't even last an hour. You'll be lucky to get like half an hour of gameplay. But you know, playing lighter stuff on the silent mode, you definitely can extend the battery life quite a bit. Like I used to play a lot of Cult of the Lamb on this because another friend of mine got Cult of the Lamb for me. And Cult of the Lamb, I used to go almost 2 hours, not quite 2 hours, but a little short of 2 hours playing on this. So you know, I thought it was fantastic. I don't plan on playing more than 2 hours in bed or anything like that. And some people play it plugged in. I'm not a huge fan of playing things plugged in, especially because Brazil is really hot. I do live in a really hot place, so even on silent mode, this thing does heat up quite a bit. So putting this on turbo mode definitely goes over 80 Celsius really easily, and then playing it plugged in, it does go even past that. So I don't often do that. I don't like putting this handheld on turbo mode. I usually stick to games that I can play on silent mode and at most on performance mode. but more on that later. For the things that this thing can do, of course it is a handheld PC with Windows on it, so you can literally do anything that a computer can do. I don't have a dock here, but if you have a dock with more ports on it, then you can connect a keyboard, a mouse, connect HDMI to a monitor, and literally use this as a desktop if you really wanted to. But of course, for me, it is a gaming handheld, so I don't have a dock or any crazy peripheral for it. And let's turn it on. And yeah, as you can see, I didn't really change the wallpaper or anything like that. Going back on the buttons that I mentioned, this button here does bring out the command center, which is just like an overlay quick setting thing. You can change the silent mode, performance mode, turbo. On the fly, you can change it like that. And either gamepad mode or desktop or auto, it's just the way things go. You can bring out the keyboard with this, and you can go on the settings and put the stuff that you want here, show desktop, all the stuff that you would need, brightness and sound from here as well. So this button is very nice, very convenient. I do like it quite a bit. And this button will open this, which is the Armory crate, and it is main portal program thing for the ROG Ally, which is where you will see all your games out here so that you can pick and play all the platforms. And then here you can mess around with the settings if you want. The command center here, this is where you edit what you want to show on the command center here. There's calibration stuff, you know, you can mess around with all these different settings. There is the update center for the Armory crate and the BIOS and all that here. So, you know, these two buttons will be doing that even inside of the games, but you can't remap this. These are here for your convenience. And yeah, being a handheld PC, it does make it very convenient to run Epic Games, Steam, all that in here in a single place. To have your entire Steam library here, all the free Epic Games that you got on there. For those of you that don't know, I do cover Epic Games free game of the week every Thursday if I have time, sometimes Friday. But on the video, I do make the first impressions video on the desktop, but then at the end of the video, I do show testing it on the ROG Ally and sometimes on my GPD Win 1. And from the games we've covered that we got on Epic, everything we threw at it, this Z1 Extreme has been able to handle it without any issues. I haven't had to put any of the games from there on turbo mode to run. Most of them ran fine on silent or at most on performance mode. So in terms of handheld PC, it is still fairly powerful. Of course, you can't expect the same performance as you would from a gaming desktop. If that's what you expect, then you will be disappointed. But from handheld PCs, of course, there are much better performing ones nowadays. But for now, the Z1 Extreme chip is still somewhat the standard right now. The ROG Ally X, which is a improvement of this, does still use that same chip. It does have a lot more RAM and it comes with a 1TB SSD, but aside from that, it is still the same size screen and the same Z1E chip. But like I mentioned, the Z2 chip is coming out, and now a lot of the chipset with the AI are coming out as well, which those do perform better. So as time goes on, the newer handheld PCs will only keep getting better. But at the moment, Z1 Extreme is still on the standard level, so it will still pull its weight and play most of the games that you throw on this. Of course, the newer AAA games might have issues. Things like Monster Hunter Wilds, I heard people are having issues with that. But like I said, it is a handheld PC. You can't expect to run things on 4K at 120 FPS. So as long as you manage your expectations, I think this is still pretty fine. If you see here, I don't have a lot of games installed. Like I said, there is Cult of the Lamb here. This is what I mostly played on this device. There is Fallout 76. For those of you who have been watching my channel for a while, you guys do know that I do make a lot of Fallout 76 content. So this device is just very handy to farm seasonal and public events in the game while I'm waiting for my video to render on my desktop. But as you can see, I don't have any crazy AAA games in here. I do have some indie games, stuff that I can play for shorter periods of time, mostly because of the battery limitations. And as you can see, I do have a mixture of Xbox and Steam games on here. I did already delete the Epic free games that I tested out this week to make space, but that works out pretty well here as well. So yeah, I'll just show you this running Fallout. So yeah, this is the character that I was preparing to play as a ghoul when the update hits eventually. And as you can see, that opens up the map. I had to get out of there because it was nuked. Right, it shows here 43, 44 FPS playing on silent mode. But yeah, playing an online game like this on silent mode is pretty fantastic. So yeah, it plays pretty well. And of course, Fallout 76 is not the most demanding game, of course, but being a online game and all, running this well without it being on turbo, I do think it is fantastic, and definitely more than what Android handhelds can do today. But yeah, as you can see here, we played only a little bit, but it is already 10% down from battery. So yeah, battery definitely is an issue here. But speaking of being better than Android devices, of course it goes without saying, you're comparing computers to Android devices. But when I started making this video, my idea was to show you emulation on here, because of being retro gamers, we also always want to emulate games on handhelds, which is fantastic. But I wanted to show you emulators that can't run very well on Android devices, just to show you the allure for fans of emulation. But in the past few weeks, emulation on Android devices have been progressing quite a bit. So yeah, I know that putting Rocknix on Odin or RP5, you can emulate original Xbox pretty well, and even some of the lighter PS3 stuff. Of course, the PS3 emulator is coming natively to Android as well. For now, it's not running too much, but it is pretty exciting to see the emulation scene progressing on Android handhelds right now. Switch, of course, works to varying degrees depending on the Android devices that you have, but I figured I would still show some of that here. And I won't be showing you too much, I only have one game on here, but on a Z1 Extreme, you can emulate mostly everything pretty well. But nowadays, most people are afraid to show first-party games just because Nintendo is cracking down on a lot of the videos that show that. I'll just show you Astral Chain. It's not a super demanding Switch game. I mean, most Switch games are not that demanding, but Android handhelds, some of them do have a hard time emulating things like this, and they are able to emulate only like the lighter stuff, but yeah, still pretty cool, yes. As you can see, it is maintaining around 30 FPS. But it is because the actual game ran on 30 FPS. And this is on silent mode. If you don't want like all these little drops of frame rate, you can put on performance mode and it will run completely fine without any issues. But even on silent mode, as you can see, it is going pretty well. The frame rate did drop down quite a bit once a lot of enemies appeared. So once there is a lot of effect, it will drop down quite. But if we put it on performance mode, But yeah, it runs pretty well. Like I said, Switch games are not too demanding, but what holds back Switch emulation now is the emulators themselves. Nintendo has shut down quite a few of the projects, so the emulators that are out now are mostly just developers grabbing scraps from the previous emulators and trying to make their own and so on. So performance may vary depending on the game, but you know, it is what it is. I personally still think the best way to play Switch games is on an actual Switch, so I'm not a huge fan of Switch emulation, which is why, as you can see, I only had one game on here. It was just to test out and to show. But there it is, the original Xbox emulation. There's still not a very good way to run this natively on Android, only if you put Rocknix on it, but Rocknix is Linux, so you know, it's kind of cheating if you think about it. And I don't have too many games, and I didn't even test all of these, but I did download a few games that I played or wanted to play back in the days when my friends had the original Xboxes. I personally didn't have an original Xbox, so I never actually played a lot of these games. I didn't download anything that we had PC counterparts, because then there's not a real point in emulating on a handheld PC, because we do have Windows, so if there is a PC counterpart, might as well just play the PC counterpart natively instead of going through the hoops of emulation. But yeah, things like Fusion Frenzy. But yeah, the way this emulator is, you do have to load the disk, close it, and then open it again for it to load. And yeah, Fusion Frenzy is something one of my friends had on his Xbox, and we used to play. I think he only had the demo even, so there was only like 2 levels we could play through, and we played that repeatedly. But here we are. This was an original Xbox exclusive. And yeah, it is a 4-player game. This is kind of like Mario Party. Like if you take out the board game part out of the Mario Party and just play the mini games, this is pretty much what it would be like. Yeah. So yeah, it ran pretty great. 58 frames per second, not too bad. And we are on silent mode, as you can see. So not bad at all. Let me try to see. I think this was the game that we had on the demo of Fusion Frenzy.
Get ready! 3, 2, 1, go!
And I'm terrible at this. Yeah, it's chaotic fun, chaotic party fun. Of course, it is a lot more fun to play with other people instead of just CPU, but just wanted to show that it runs. Let's try Panzer Dragoon. We had the Panzer Dragoon for the computer way back in the days. That was one of the first video games that we owned, and it was really cool. Oh, it's slightly lagging on this one. Also, because this is a game that I haven't tried before on my ROG Ally right now, it might be trying to recompile shaders and whatnot, so it might be why it is lagging. You can see that there is a lot of dips on the lagging part, but yeah, this is definitely pretty cool. On the original Panzer Dragoon, I don't think you could change where you're facing. It was just like an on rails. I mean, this is still on rails as well, but like you can change where you're looking, you know? I don't think you could do that on the original Panzer Dragoon. At least I don't remember you being able to. But yeah, as you can see, it stopped lagging. It's running pretty well as well, 59. This again on just silent mode. So of course the original Xbox is from like the PS2 era, so yeah, none of it is 2D demanding nowadays, so it should work well on most Windows handheld PCs without any issues. But yeah, it's still something that Android devices don't have a native way to emulate. You do have to put Rockmix and stuff like that on there, so it is one of the cool stuff that you can do on a Windows PC. Let's take a look at PS3 now. And yeah, the RPCS3 is a fantastic emulator, and it is coming to run natively on Android, which is fantastic. And as you can see, I did put mostly exclusives as well. That's why I think emulation is important, because things like Disgaea 3, we have Disgaea 1, 2, 4, 5, and 6 on the Steam, but we don't have 3 for whatever reason. They did not bring 3, probably something to do with licensing issues, but you can't play all of them through Steam because of that. So having an emulator to have the option to play Disgaea 3 on the same handheld as the other Steam games, it's just fantastic. But with PS3, you do have to mess around with individual settings and whatnot, so it can be a little tricky. But things like Demon's Souls, it will run pretty well without messing around on the settings, so that's fantastic. And I know Demon's Souls came out for PS4, PS5, the remaster, but still pretty cool that we can play the original Demon's Souls on a handheld like this. And yeah, so the first time you turn on, you do have to, it does load cache and all that, so we can lag a little bit here and there. This is also running on silent mode. Okay, so my camera did overheat a little bit there, so I did have to give it a rest and come back afterwards. But yeah, as I was showing, the FPS is capped at 30, as you can see, but you can definitely see that it is working really well. I keep spending. Well, there you go. As you can see, it runs really well. It runs almost perfect. I realize there might be a bit of a sound bug when you break too many crates at once, but I guess games back then did have little quirks like that, so it could be that it wasn't a bug and just straight out that's how it was back then. I don't know. I haven't played Demon's Souls too much back then. I played a little bit and I don't remember too much about it. Yeah, did you hear that? It sounds like it's all of this, like too many of the same sound happening at once. But yeah, it plays completely well. Even when there were a few more enemies, the frame rate didn't drop at all. So this is definitely really good to play on, especially because it is on silent mode still. To be able to play on handheld like this, it's just really fantastic. Likewise, this Gaia 3, like I mentioned, right now you can't buy it on Steam, even though you can buy all of the other Disgaias. So having it on an emulator is definitely one of the only ways that you can play today, unless you have the actual disc and a PS3, which I do, but my Disgaea 3 disc did go through disc rot, and so even though I have a PS3, you won't recognize the disc anymore. I love having physical collection and all, but anything can happen to a physical collection. They deteriorate, can get damaged, and so having the option to be able to play this on digital after all that is gone, I think is a fantastic thing. Now there are heavier games like Drakengard and Resistance, but those obviously you can't play on silent mode. Let's try Resistance. Now, of course, the first time you play it, it will try to build up a cache, and we'll see how well it goes on silent mode first, and then change it up if we need to. There was something wrong with the sound already, but for now it is holding a steady 30. Resistance was one of my first games for the PSP, so I do have a soft spot for the Resistance games, even though my friends preferred Killzone instead. Yep, it is starting to drop. From 30 went to, oh yeah, it is definitely dropping. I mean, it is just a cutscene, but it is holding 30 frames per second for now. It is very smooth, at least on the cutscene. The sound is a little low, but you know, we can always just increase that. Oh, 45? Oh, he says 47, but this is definitely rough. Yeah, 28, 30. Oh, oops. I mean, it's running okay, I think. 29 frames per second on silent mode. I don't think this is bad at all. It does go down in frames, so if you do change it to higher settings, then it will probably run much better. But if you want to save battery, this is still not a bad option. Like, this is still not too bad. Oh, there you go. R2. Carbine, bullseye. But yeah, definitely not too bad. Definitely not bad at all. On silent mode, let's try to put on performance mode just to see how it goes here. Whoa, much smoother. Much smoother. Definitely a heck of a lot smoother. It is still capped at 30, but you can definitely feel the difference. But pretty crazy that we can emulate PS3 this well on a handheld now. It's wild to me to think how far we've come, you know? Oh, there is something going on with the grass. Oh, those are humans I'm shooting at. I mean, of course, it is not the best looking FPS to play nowadays in 2025, but this used to be peak gaming on PS3 back then. And so it's still, I still think it's fantastic. There is some grass issues over there, but you know, I'm really surprised at how well this is playing as is. It's really good on performance mode and still okay on silent. Not too bad, to be completely honest. But yeah, you can expect similar performances under here. Disgaea 3 and Rune Factory will of course run better because they're graphically less demanding. You can see just from the size as well. Demon Souls is 7 gigabytes, Drakengard is 14 gigabytes, Resistance is 17 gigabytes, but Rune Factory is just 2.5, and Disgaea 3 is like 1.8. Graphically, JRPGs are much less demanding, so they're definitely very good options to play on a handheld, especially Disgaea being a tactical RPG. It is fantastic to play on a handheld without any issues. But let's move on. I did wanted to show you 360 emulation because of course the counterpart of the PS3 is of course Xbox 360. So if you have watched some of my videos, you know that one of my favorite games ever is Fable: The Lost Chapters. And I did have a Xbox 360 back in the days, so I did play through Fable 2 and 3 as well. I didn't like them quite as much as Fable: The Lost Chapters, but they were still pretty great. I did still enjoy them quite a bit. Fable 3 did come out on PC eventually, but then was taken out again for licensing issues. But Fable 2 was always a Xbox 360 exclusive, so we couldn't play it on PC unless we did emulations. And I'm happy to tell you that it runs really well on a ROG Ally. To continue, I had just started a new game. Yeah, so on silent mode, of course, it's not going to be too great. But on performance mode, look how smooth that is. That was awkward. Why are they still talking? But yeah, you can see it runs really well on performance mode, very smoothly. But you can see that there is a lot more effect here than on resistance. You can see there's a lot of glowing things. There's snow falling, smoke from the sewers. Just the environment is very detailed, and still it runs really well on performance mode. I still think it's fantastic. Let's try going back to silent mode. When you first start the game, it does lag up quite a bit, mostly because of the cache issue. You can definitely see that there is some frame rate drop here. Definitely not like on performance. I guess I wouldn't say it's playable by comparison. It does look like it's going slow-mo at times. You know, in a pinch, it could do. But definitely the way to go would be performance mode, because it runs very smoothly here. Even when you run, no issue, fantastic. But yeah, like I said, this is one of the older ones, so I did wanted to show you something slightly newer. I did open PS3. Nope, apparently there's an update. So maybe the PS3 stuff will run even better now. Who knows? Like I said, Fable 2 was one of the older ones, so let's try something slightly newer, something more graphically impressive. This one as well, we will go into silent mode first. This is the very first Forza Horizon. I know a lot of you do like Forza Horizon 4 and 5. I do think they're fantastic as well. The 2, it's a little iffy to run on the ROG Ally, but 1 runs actually pretty great. Let's turn off the radio because some of the DMCA stuff. You can see that it is a little choppy on silent mode. It is not that great of an experience, but then again, if you go onto performance mode, just like on Fable 2, look how smooth that is. It does cap at 30, I think, but still it's pretty fantastic, especially on a handheld. And the graphics, of course, are definitely a lot more impressive than in Fable 2. Although Fable 2, it's just because it is slightly cartoony. Like I showed you, the environment details is pretty crazy over there. But look at this. I did smash my car, but for me, this is pretty impressive. I don't know about you guys. Like, obviously I could run Forza Horizon 4 and Forza Horizon 5 from Steam or even the Xbox app on the ROG Ally natively, and it would still look amazing and run really well. But Forza Horizon 1 through 3 are games that we can't buy for the PC anymore. So to play those, handheld mode, emulation is the only way. Hello, kitty. No. Look at that. Look at the scenery. Forza Horizon games are definitely really cool, and this is where it started. So to be able to play that on a handheld, even though you can play Forza Horizon 4 and Forza Horizon 5 without any issues here on the ROG Ally, I do still think it's really cool that we can emulate Xbox 360 games this well, looking this good on a handheld. It's fantastic to see. Oh, these are both pretty cool, but I think I'm gonna go with the Lancer because, come on. Yeah, we'll go with the Lancer. Because Lancer is way much cooler, in my point of view. What color? Oh, we can change colors. Black, blue. I mean, it's a Lancer, it has to be red, right? What an upgrade. Oh, look at that. But yeah, fantastic game, fantastic fun. You guys do know that I like racing games, even though I'm pretty trash at them. But I do think this is really cool. I do think it's really smooth, runs really great. Fantastic game to play on a handheld, just like the other stuff that I showed here. But yeah, 360 emulator, pretty great on here. Even though Android handheld, I don't know when this video is gonna come out, but at the moment of this recording, Android emulation is progressing really far as well. Our PCS3, which is the exact same emulator that we use for the PS3 on this, has come out for Android, and though it's at a rough start at the moment, it is slowly but surely improving. But Xbox 360, we don't see this on Android yet. So that is definitely a point for the handheld PCs on the Z1 Extreme. Definitely runs pretty great. Of course, it's not every Xbox 360 game that runs great, but the ones that do, they run fantastically well. But yeah, what else is there? Is the Xbox 360 and the heavier PC games the only thing that handheld PCs can do better than Android? Well, there is one more thing, but this is still very early stages. This is the PS4 emulator, and as you can see, I do have Bloodborne on here. That said, when I tested this, it did boot up, it did go in, but once I got to the first door, it would freeze there. The emulator has updated once since then, but I don't know if they did any changes to that. When I tested this a few months back, every time, no matter what resolution I messed with, no matter if I played on turbo or on silent mode, it would always freeze on the same spot. You can already see that the FPS is pretty low. Did I put on? No, it is on performance. But like I said, every time you do boot up a game on emulation, it will try to load cache in the beginning, so it will be laggy in the beginning for the most part. But yeah, it went down, and then now you can see that it definitely got a lot better than a few seconds ago. But the sound is still a little echoey and weird. Yeah, look at that. I'm not sure what to do about that. It did come back. Sometimes it comes back, but then over here there is that wolf thing, and then getting past him on that other door, that is the door that I always freeze at. But like I said, it was one version of the emulator before when I tried it, so let's see if it's different now. I don't think it will be. But we'll try. We'll run. Oh, we did get past it. Oh. And we died. But we did get past that place I used to get stuck at, so maybe they did improve quite a bit on the emulator. Of course, this game is definitely playable from beginning until the end on a desktop. It has no issues there, but on the ROG Ally Z1E, we do only have 16 gigabytes of RAM, and so maybe that could be an issue, but it was freezing a lot before. Now it did get past that part, which is fantastic. Maybe we can play this until the end, from beginning to end now, if that is the case. It does still like lag up a little on doors and stuff. For the most part, this looks fantastic, honestly. Saw cleaver, hunter axe. I'm actually surprised that it got past that one spot. Oh, it's lagging again. Yeah, so it is too shoddy. It definitely did get farther than last time I tried, but again, it is getting stuck in the same doors again when I came back with the weapon. But before, I couldn't even go get the weapon, right? So it is a definite improvement. It's just not as great as it is on the desktop. So I think desktops are more powerful enough that they will just power through any memory leaks, but on the ROG Ally Z1E, it's still not strong enough to power through any of the issues it might be having. It does get stuck in places like this, and then there's nothing you can do but restart. But I still think it is pretty great. It is still fantastic that you can boot in at all, and you can play around a little bit. The resolution did look really bad, but it's because, like I said, on the previous iteration of the emulator, it wasn't getting past the doors at all. So I thought maybe if I lowered everything, it would play better. Like if you look here, cheats and patches, I think it was. Yeah, so 30 FPS, disabled chronic aberration. Yeah, so I did put it 360. That's why it looked terrible. But I can show you that at 720, it will most likely have the exact same performance. You can see that the letters are already much better to read than the 360 that I put. Yeah. Again, we'll wait a few seconds for the cache to load in, I guess. Yeah, it goes down and then it starts going back up. Yeah, you can see that it still looks great. There was a little drop there, but graphically it looks much better than before. But the frame rate is still similar. Maybe not quite as smooth, but still. And just like before, I think we're gonna freeze here. But like I said, pretty smooth movement, pretty smooth camera movement, all on performance mode, even on 720p, fantastic. So it wasn't the resolution that was making it freeze. Yeah, I always keep thinking that maybe if I walk, maybe if I ease into the hallway, then it won't freeze. And sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes I get to that stairs, but then on those stairs, on the door at the top of that stairs, I always freeze. But here too, as you can see, yeah, NA FPS, it means it completely stopped. It's not coming back. At least with this version of the emulator, we did get our weapon, which is still a progress because before we couldn't. But yeah, still getting stuck here. It is what it is. Here's to hoping that PS4 emulation will keep getting better to the point where it will run okay on a ROG Ally. But at the moment, you could probably play lighter games, but Bloodborne, which is the one game from PS4 that I wanted to play, at the moment, it is what it is. But still, I do think it is pretty fantastic the things that the Z1 Extreme can do. We did show just a little bit, of course. Any emulation before these, like PS2, GameCube, all that, it will run fantastically well without any issues, obviously. I just wanted to show you some of the harder ones to emulate. It is pretty exciting to see how far we'll go on the handheld scene. But still, for now, I do think the Z1 Extreme is still worth it, especially because its prices are coming down quite a bit now that the ROG Ally X is out and better handhelds are on the horizon. The prices of the Z1E are going down, so even at full price, I did think it was pretty impressive. And now at a lower price, I do definitely recommend. Of course, some of the heavier games might have an issue. You might have to dial down the resolution and change the mode here. But for the most part, everything I threw at it have run pretty well, or at least satisfactorily. I did play through some of Baldur's Gate on this, but as long as it's not competitive online game, like MMOs, stuff like that, can be pretty cool to play on this. Or single player games are always fantastic, of course. You can see here that I do have a lot of games on Steam, and so anyone who has an extensive Steam library will most definitely have a lot of fun with a handheld PC, and something at the level of the Z1 Extreme is definitely a lot more enjoyable than something like the GPD Win 1 that I showed on this channel before. That one, as fun as it is definitely for much older and much lighter games, so it is quite limited as to the stuff that you could do with it. With the Z1 Extreme, the limitations will only be like the super new AAA games, the super heavy games, or the online competitive stuff. And so there is still a lot that you can do with this. And like I said, not just Steam, but also Epic Games, GOG, EA, anything that you would like to install on here. As you can see, game platforms, any of those that you want to install, we'll install it, we'll read your games on there, we'll put your games on here. It is a very flexible handheld that you could do practically anything you want from the desktop to here. So yeah, I do think it is worth it, and I don't think it will never not be worth it. I don't think any of these handheld PCs will ever be like collector's items as they get older, like Game Boys and PSPs and stuff like that, because Game Boys and PSPs, even if they come out with a newer handheld, you can't get a 3DS to play Game Boy cartridges. You can't get a Switch to play DS cartridges. In that sense, those handhelds did become collector items because you could keep all those games for it, all those memories for it and everything. But with handheld PCs, like I said, these are PC, right? Even if you get a new handheld PC, all your games from this will be on that as well. So there isn't so much as a reason to keep older handheld PCs. And so the prices of these will most likely just keep going down. I guess someone who wants to have all the iterations of the ROG Ally handhelds could make it a thing, but for the foreseeable future, most likely the prices of the Z1E will just keep going down. So, you know, at some point, if you want to pick it up, years from now, it will still be able to do everything that I showed here, and possibly by then emulators will be better optimized, so you will be able to play emulated games better than what I showed here. So yeah, that is what I had to show and what I had to tell you. Let me know what you think. Do you have a handheld PC? Are you planning on getting a handheld PC? And what games would you play on it? Let me know in the comments down below. Leave a like if you enjoyed this video. Consider helping out the channel by clicking join down below to become a member. Subscribe to see more videos like this. And of course, always nerd on.